I started learning Power BI back in 2016 and it has been 10 years since then. I've made countless mistakes while learning Power BI, and through those mistakes I've learned techniques that I wish I knew sooner. I've also taught thousands of students around the world, and I also actively run my consulting company Goodly Insights to help mid to large companies develop very complicated Power BI reports. Now, if someone asks me this one question, how would you relearn Power BI in 2026? I'm going to share with them this 4-stage framework for absolute clarity. Let's start. Alright, let's just say that our goal is you want to start learning Power BI today and you want to have the fastest path to accumulate enough knowledge in Power BI so that you start solving challenging problems on your own. And that also means that you're going to actively take the help of AI. To solve this problem, I've got a 4-stage framework. The first part of this particular framework is the model planning phase. Now, you might have seen a lot of time on the internet that model is the crux of any particular Power BI report. It's the heart of any Power BI report, the dimensional model, the star schema, whatever you may call it. And to be able to visualize the star schema, you might have seen a lot of times that in the center, you have some sort of fact table, then you have a products table, then you have a stores table, a customers table, a calendar table, so on and so forth, that actually surrounds the sales table, and that actually becomes a star schema. Well, that is good enough, but the problem is that in real life, star schema is very rare to find. I'm sure you're going to find a few examples that you're going to have a star schema, but as soon as you start to add a layer of complexity of real life, the star schema fades away and you do not know what to do with that particular data. Let me actually talk about a practical example where you'd have to force yourself to think about star schema and you would not have star schema on the platter. And that phase is nothing but model planning. Take a look at the sales data that I'm working with. So here I have a very simple first column as my transaction ID, which is the sales transaction ID, the date of the sale, which product was sold, store code, units, and the price. Now, obviously, units into price is going to give you the sales value. Nothing that complicated. We are still good. At the moment, to be able to look up any particular product, I have a products table on the next sheet, and that's nothing but my products. So if I want to find out any information about the product, I can take a look at this column and then I can find the type, the product, the category, whatever that might be. Now, let's just say that at the moment, it seems like a star schema. The sales table product code column can connect to the product code column in the products table, but there is a twist. Let's just say that I also introduced a bit of anomaly in the real data. And I say that there happens to be a price increase table as well, which is manually maintained somewhere in Excel, something like this. And it says that every time you hit a month, the price increases by 2%. So if you actually take a look at the sales data right here, May onwards, the price is going to increase by 2% across all the products. If I just go right here and take a look at my data, you're going to see that once I hit the month of May, so Jan, Feb, March, April, May, from here onwards, the price is going to start to increase by 2% onwards from here on, right? And if you actually go take a look at the next price increase, November, the price is going to increase by 5%. And that is going to be a cumulative price increase on top of the previous increase. How are you going to build a star schema with that? And that is the reason why model planning becomes super important. What you have to do is, in order to be able to build a star schema, we have to plan the model first. Let's just see that how do we plan this particular model. Let's just say that we have a sales table right here, which is where we have the product ID column. And this particular product ID column obviously connects to our products table. And then we have a product code column right here. And that connects right here. Pretty good. Now there is also happens to be the price increase table. And let's just say that we have a date column in my sales table that obviously is going to connect with my calendar table or my date table using the date column. And this is nothing but my calendar table. And this column links right here. Now, where do I bring in the star schema? Where do I put in the price increase table, which just had 2 columns? Where do I even fit this particular table? How do I even carry out the calculation? This is where your real modeling skills are going to come into play. Now, I've already done this particular example in the past to show you how modeling is done. A quick solution to this problem is that if I supposedly brought the column in the calendar table, which is, let's say, my accumulator column, and this accumulator column showed me the price increase against every single date value, then I can just maybe fetch the price increase and just apply to that particular date and just do the units into price in my sales table, and I multiply that with the accumulator or the price increase right here. And that is going to absolutely solve the problem. The point that I'm trying to make is that when you're trying to work with real data, the real data is not going to adhere to a normal star schema that you have been learning. It's super important that you sit down with a pen and paper and try to bring the tables in a way that talk to one another and try to plan the model like this. This is going to give you absolute clarity as to which tables do you want to keep, which columns to remove, what should be the granularity of the table, and how exactly are you going to link the table as well. Stage number 2 is the ETL stage. Just a while ago, you might have seen that the part 1, which is where I was talking about model planning and a particular example of price increase, we ended that part abruptly and I did not explain much about the accumulator column, that how that column came about to be. This is what is going to happen in your real models as well. That means that when you take a look at the actual data and when you take a look at your model that you have sketched it out on a piece of paper, you're going to see that the data doesn't quite adhere to the model that you have made. And that is the gap that you have to fill using some kind of ETL tool. If you're an avid Excel user and Excel is all that you have, then Power Query literally becomes your data engineering tool to be able to clean the data, transform the data, build a pipeline so that it happens automatically and push that data to Power BI. Let's just go back to our example for a quick second and take a look at what is the gap that our data has and how do we fix that using ETL. So if you actually take a look at the model that I have made, I said that in the calendar table, we are going to make this accumulator column, and this accumulator column is going to contain the price increase. If you currently take a look at the price increase table that we have, all that we have is 2 months. In the first column, we have the month, and in the second column, we have the percentage price increase. Now, I need to be able to transform this particular table in such a way that it kind of expands and it has all the months, all months. It also has an accumulation of the price increase. That means from the month of January up until the month of May, there was no price increase. So the accumulator factor is 1 all the way through here. And then after May onwards, the accumulation factor is, let's say, 2%. So this becomes 1.02. And then thereafter, you have the month of November, and then you have a 5% increase. So it's going to be a cumulative increase. So I believe that's going to be 1.07 or a 7% increase on top of the 2% that has already increased. And this continues up until the end of the data. Now, this column, which is where I have all the months and what is the percentage accumulated increase over the previous month, if I somehow connect that in the Power Queries environment with the calendar table and apply a merge, I will carry all of these accumulated increases in my date table right here, and then I can use that in my sales table right here. Now you can obviously see that in order to be able to build a model that mimics the star schema behavior, I obviously had a gap, and that gap was literally filled by Power Queries engine so that I could transform the data, mold the data, and still be able to make a very clean calculation. Now, you might want to fill up the gap by yourself if you have enough understanding of the M language, how Power Query engine works, doing sophisticated calculations, or even if you don't have the understanding and you would want to take help of the AI, you can literally say that this is my actual data, this is my proposed model. How do I actually go from the actual data and build a model something like this? And all the steps in between can possibly be done by AI as well. In case you would like to learn the M language right from scratch, understand how Power Query works, how complicated transformation works, and this particular example and more examples like this, I'd highly recommend that you take a look at my M course in Power Query, which is where I talk about a lot of simple to complicated fundamental concepts that you have to learn first, and then we build on discussing more complicated problems and solutions as well. In case you're interested, the link is going to be down in the description of the video. The third stage is actually building the model after you have loaded the data and writing some calculations on top of that. Now, the language that Power BI gives you to write calculations is nothing but the DAX language. The problem with the DAX language is that although it looks like Excel, but it doesn't quite work like Excel. That means if you were to just go in Excel and on a complicated cell formula, if you were to press the F2 key, sure enough, the entire cell is going to light up, the entire spreadsheet is going to light up and give you references of the ranges in the cells that actually make that formula. And it's so easy to trace the formulas and the cells where are the values coming from. Unfortunately, that does not happen in DAX. You have a long formula in DAX, you stare at it, it stares back at you. You stare at it, it stays back at you, and that's it. It does not light up the actual cells and the ranges. You have to understand the opacity of DAX in order to be able to understand how DAX is working. There are two problems that people generally face, and obviously these are the kind of mistakes that people do that I don't want you to make. Number one is that people don't understand that DAX actually works on a filter context. That means it takes a look at the filters, then applies those filters to the data, then carries out the DAX calculation, and then returns the result to the visual. So literally every DAX formula sends a query back to the engine to get the data only for those filters and then passes the results onto the visual. All of that is super hard thing to imagine because all of that is happening under the hood. There is no F2 key or a built-in evaluation engine to be able to take a look at how the results are being formed for the numbers that you're getting in DAX. The second really hard thing, which obviously comes from point number one of not understanding how DAX works, is that because DAX is hard and it's opaque, a lot of times it's very hard to translate what you're trying to do in business in requirements of how the DAX is going to work. When you're working with Excel, obviously you can write a few numbers. Excel is so versatile. You can even type a few calculations, write some basic formulas. But in DAX, it doesn't happen like that. To be able to learn DAX, I'll highly recommend that you first understand the behavior of how the DAX formulas are working and what does any particular formula do. Once you understand the behavior, not the syntax, but the behavior, that what does this particular formula do, then you can take that behavior and try to apply to real life problems. Now, all of that is just talk. Let me actually take you through a practical example by what do I mean by understanding the behavior of the functions and then trying to formulate the logic as per that. I'm working with a very simple sales table in my Power BI, and there are two date columns. One is the date of the sale, and then we have a commission payout date. On every single sales date, let's say somebody also earns commission. That means your commission earning date is literally the same date on which the sale has been made. But then when the commission is paid out, that date could be different. It could be in the same month, or it could be in the following month. So if you take a look at the date right here, the sale that was made on the 6th of January, the commission was earned on that same day, but actually paid out on the 20th of January. Sometimes this date could be in the same month, sometimes this date could be in the following month as well. Now here's the question. If I've already calculated the commission that I have earned and the commission that is supposed to be paid, I would want to find out that what is my accrued commission. On any certain date, on any end of the month, I want to find out that what is going to be my accrued commission. By accrued commission, I simply mean that what is the commission that has been earned but not paid yet. How do we solve this particular problem? In order for me to solve this problem, I need to be able to break this down into the behavioral elements of DAX. That means what math do I do to be able to translate that logic and that fits well in Power BI. Let's just take a look at our visual. So if I were to, let's just say that find my accrued commission up until the month of March, I obviously will have to take a look at every single commission that has been earned till the date, which is the ending of March, total of all of these values, subtracted by every single commission that has been paid until that particular date. That means this value minus the commission paid value up until the certain date, and that is going to give me the accrued commission. Total of everything that has been earned, total of everything that has been paid, less, and that is going to be your accrued commission. Now, the tricky part in this particular formula is that the commission value that you're actually taking a total up until a certain date should not technically end by the end of the year. That means if you're trying to do a running total of this particular column, it should not technically stop until December. It should carry on even after the year has finished, because some sales that were made in December might be paid in the month of January, and that's fine. So the running total behavior should be such that it does not stop until the end of the year. It continues thereafter as well, and that should also be applied to the commission paid. Once I have these two things ready, I can then go ahead and start to write the DAX. Now, once you have broken down the logic into its more component math parts, then you can start to go trace that what formulas can do that, and then you can take the help of AI. You can do it yourself. If you know the DAX language, you can do it yourself and then try to build the solution. Now, in case you're curious, I'm actually going to show you the solution. So the solution looks something like this, which is where I am saying, hey, I want to find out that what has been the commission earned until today. That is my first variable, which is where I'm calculating total commission, finding out all the dates which are less than equal to the max calendar date in the current filter context. That is going to be my earned until today. That is going to be my paid until today. If I just take the difference, I am going to get my accrued commission. Easy as that. Now, this behavior is now understandable because I have broken down the problem into its core components, and then I'm trying to solve for those core components instead. Now, if I just go ahead and drag this visualization off to my visual, this is nothing but my accrued commission that I can see it right here. Part number 4 of your 4-stage framework is the visual design. The problem with all of the work that we have done so far, planning of the model, filling up the ETL gap by actually performing ETL either in Power Query or in SQL, the tool of your choice. Then we have also built the model and carried out DAX calculation. All of that work so far is engineering work, it's the calculation work. It sits at the back. On top of that, you have to build something easy and consumable for the end users. A lot of rookie people generally who are starting to learn Power BI, and that's not their fault, they end up building visuals where they are just trying to fill up these canvas of the screen. Some just trying to slap the charts so that the screen somehow looks full. And their charts are going to be pretty elementary, like sales by region, sales by band, sales by month, sales by quarter, sales by year. And the time that it fills up the entire page, they will start decking up the page, like creating shadows, adding colors and things like that. Now, I'm not saying that's bad and that doesn't provide any kind of value, but it does not even consider the most fundamental question that you would want to be asking right at the start, is that what problem are you trying to solve for? What is the information that you're trying to put first that actually solves a particular problem, an information gap, an insight gap that the person should take a look at it first. You should technically answer 3 key questions even before you start building any kind of dashboard. Number 1, who is going to see this dashboard? Is that going to be a manager? Is that going to be a department head? Is that going to be a CFO or a CEO? Depending upon the hierarchy of the person, you are actually going to pick up the information and make sure that that information is relevant to the person who's taking a look at it. Not information is highly valuable for everybody inside of the company. Number 2, the what. What decisions is the person going to make of it? If you understand the end objective of the person who's trying to make some decisions and what are they technically going to use the dashboard for, it becomes ridiculously easy. You know that this is the decision that person wants to make. For this decision, all of this data is needed, so you just put that data. The next most important thing about the data is that how is going to be the flow of the information? What is going to be the hierarchy of the information flow? That is super important. Now, you might come up with 5 different data points or 10 different data points that you would want to kind of present in the dashboard. You have to arrange those information points in the order of hierarchy. What do I put first? That's the most important thing. From there, how do I break that into level 2 information? From there, how do I break that into level 3 information? And then it could be multiple pages, multiple drill downs or filters. That is absolutely going to be ensuring that your dashboard speaks to the end user and essentially is trying to give some value, and you're literally trying to solve some problems rather than just filling up the space on the screen. The most important mistake that I have made a lot of times in the past is that I tend to build the dashboard and trying to show the finished product right at the start to my client, and that was a big mistake. Now at the moment, what I try to do is I try to build a wireframe. Now there are a lot of tools out there to build wireframes. You can take a look at that, but it's super important that you kind of build something really quick in about 10, 15, 20 minutes. And that gives the end user some clarity as to how the information is going to look like. People are really bad at staring at the blank screen and imagining what they want. You have to give them a starting point. If you actually work on 3 days to build a perfectly knitted dashboard and you show that to them and that dashboard does not work out for them, that is going to be an absolute disaster and you would not want to be in that place. So please, before you put in all of that hard work to build and beautify and format the dashboard, it's super essential that you build some kind of wireframe to help them understand this is my thought process, this is going to be the information flow, this is how it is possibly going to look like with the real numbers. Please take a look at this. Did you like it? If they say yes, then you actually go ahead and start building that dashboard.